The Sun is holding a special live edition of Royal Exclusive, and you can be in the audience. Much loved royal photographer Arthur Edwards.
When I went up to get my medal at the palace, I walked forward. She said, "I can't believe I'm giving you this." She pinned the medal on me.
And TV legend Jenny Bond.
I do miss him. I mean, Harry was the most popular royal, wasn't he, a few years ago. And having watched him grow up and known him just a little bit, you know, he was a wonderful little boy.
Will be joining me, Matt Wilkinson, for an unforgettable night rich with never-heard-before stories from the past 4 decades. Find out what's really going on with Meghan and Harry and behind the walls of Buckingham Palace to what the future of the royal family is going to look like. We'll be diving into the latest royal news and giving you the inside scoop on everything you need to know. Plus, you'll have the chance to ask our expert panel your burning questions. This is your opportunity to get the answers. Don't miss it.
The issue is, I think I'm saying something radical here, I think if you think people still love Harry, they still like him. That's the problem. The problem is they don't like the woman he loves.
I don't think that's radical. I don't think that's controversial. I think I speak to people and it's very much the same. Harry is still Diana's son. You know, as I say, you talked about the walking behind the coffin. You know, mothers still remember, I'm sure, you know, we all still remember the funeral where he walked behind Diana's coffin, that heartbroken little boy. We still kind of care for him, but we'd never really got to know Meghan. I mean, how long was she here for?
So they dated, I think it was 18 months from when we found out about her relationship with Harry to them getting married, and then she was in the royal family for less than 2 years. So, as you say, Harry is so loved here. He was Britain's favourite son. He was their cheeky son. So popular. And it's only really been a few years, it feels like a lot longer, but it's only really been a few years since he left. But I think people still hold that great affection for him, but they never really knew her. They didn't even know her as a royal, really. It was such a short period.
There was a lot of outpouring of love for her because they felt he found someone fairly late in life in terms of how royals, you know, sort of get married off. So I think, you know, it was in her hands to develop that. But of course, when you come from Hollywood, when you come from the star system, when you come from, you know, making sure that you're absolutely on the red carpet for X, Y, and Z, make sure you've actually got your table in restaurants, you're actually seen and thereabouts. You know, they were not the premier act. And actually, in some ways, where spare was turned out of as, oh, poor me, I was a spare, you know, I was, you know, bullied by my brother, all this sort of this nonsense. Actually, being a spare in some ways was a huge advantage for him. And I think with the, you know, the diagnosis about the illness of the king, you've got, you know, the sort of treatment that Kate was going through. Actually, the royal family needed Harry. It slimmed down. And I think that's became a glaring, you know, a missing cog in his very important royal machine. I think that reflected back to him. He must have been sitting there thinking, well, God, if I hadn't done all this, you know, I'd be centre stage.
It's interesting you raised that about the outpouring of love earlier for Meghan, because I was on the Australian tour with Harry and Meghan. You cannot imagine a more rock star welcome for anyone short of the Queen, the late Queen. It was the love that was there for her, particularly because she announced that she was pregnant while she was there. I think it was the next day or even later, that first day. The outpouring of love, the crowds that were there and of all ages. It was unbelievable, the buzz around them for that entire trip. She was very loved in that period, but again, it was just such a short period that people didn't really get the chance to hold that long-term affection that may see them bounce back.
In many ways, sorry, you were talking about, you know, plans, ways that they can turn it around. They're looking for that adulation by going to Colombia, by going to Nigeria and having lots of screaming people like you had in Australia. You know, they're going on these trips, these foreign trips. They're copying what they did in the royal family to maybe get that kind of love and adulation, maybe.
Well, look, I mean, if you think of Africa and you look at the problems the royal family face over the next 20 years, it is the empire legacy. It is the Commonwealth. You know, you've got countries like Australia, you've got various places in Africa who don't want to be reminded of the colonial past. And here is, you know, Meghan with her heritage that actually is a fantastic communicator for a modern royal family. You know, the problem the royal family have got, in which actually I think that's why Meghan and Harry were needed, is how do you relate to Gen Zs and millennials? the boomers have grown up with it and they've got that inbuilt sort of conditioning about it. You look at the average sort of Gen Z kid who's worried about the world and what's happening to it. They're looking at this and I don't have any relationship with it. And that's what actually, funnily enough, I think William and Kate, particularly trying to assimilate in terms of what will the monarchy be. I mean, Charles is really standing in, for a period of time and actually harvesting the last of the Elizabethan age. So what will it mean to the people? And actually the youth that they have. I mean, if he goes on for a few years, William can come in to the throne in his 60s. That isn't a very modern thing. So therefore, their children, both Meghan and Harry's children, and also clearly George and the rest of them, Kate, are really important to this institution. And when it's slimmed down, let's not forget, it's a job. It might have all the glamour, but it's really hard work. Do you really want to be it? You're damned if you do something, you're damned if you don't. You are constantly, sort of under the microscope to be looked at. People look at it and don't realise just how difficult it is, just how toxic that fame connected with it is. And I think that's why I think Harry took so long in actually finding Meghan, because he had a lot of girlfriends beforehand, British, who actually understood what it was to be.
And they went, we don't want anything.
We don't want
anything to do with
And
it.
who can blame them?
Yeah.
And who can blame them? So someone who didn't know and absolutely jumped at the opportunity because she could be the sort of, the Disney princess, as I said.
Is it too late, Bronte? Do you think it's too late for... We hear these rumours that... I mean, I'm told it's not true, but there's constant rumours. Front pages of the Times and the Mail on Sunday this year have said that Harry's been reaching back to his old friends. I mean, is there a possibility for redemption, for the couple to come back?
So bearing in mind, as you say, it seems so highly unlikely that anything permanent or full-time would ever happen because Meghan surely would never come back and live in Britain.
She's gone. Yeah.
So and they're married and they're together, so that's not likely. But with that said, if it ever happened that he did need to, win back favour with the British public, I can see it happening. Like you said, there's a lot of affection. People have watched him his whole life. I think there are ways back. I think it's staying the course. I think it's that patience you've mentioned. I think it's finding the things that give him purpose and that he's really good at, like Invictus Games, and sticking with that. For Meghan, I think that anything's possible. It would be a long rehabilitation, though.
I think never, ever underestimate surprise. You never understand what could actually happen. If you think, I'm old enough to remember, the media and the sort of conversation at the time rejecting the very idea that Camilla could be queen, rejecting the idea that, and actually, time goes on and getting on with real work, keeping your head below the parapet, gradually there is acceptance and values, obviously change around that. You just don't know. I think the future of the royal family now remain in the kids now, that generation coming through to a certain extent. But who knows what can happen, and who knows, if they can, rehabilitate. But this man, Harry, has been conditioned for his job of being the spare. Are you telling me when he's sitting in his Montesino sort of palace, lying in his hammock, not thinking how much he's missing? I think it was been incredibly difficult for him not to be able to wear the ceremonial military stuff. It must be so hurtful for him. He clearly loves this woman. And, and undoubtedly she loves him.